You're listening to CreepGeeks Podcast. So it begins again. Welcome to CreepGeeks Podcast, Season 6, Episode 247.
Chapel of Rest, Creepy Investigation, Witch Drama in North Carolina, and Foothills Solstice Celebration.
Yeah. So here we are again. Welcome back to the CreepGeeks Podcast. As I keep smashing my microphone stand because it's at a weird angle.
Oh.
And that's what 2022 is. Just weird angles, man. Excuse me while I adjust it. They didn't hear that. Torque it down. Okay, so anyway, this podcast is about stuff that we find to be interesting on the internet and investigations in places that we do, typically of a paranormal or creepy or cryptid in nature.
Yes.
I'm Greg.
I'm Omi.
And let's get to it.
Okay.
All right. Let me turn this delicious music down. All right. Okay, so anyway, welcome to the CreepGeeks Podcast. Over the past couple of weeks, we've been doing some things and been kind of active slightly and had some things to do, and including go to conventions and stuff like that, or expos, or whatever you want to call it, festivals.
Yeah.
And we just got back from one. It's pretty good. I don't know if we're going to talk about it or not. It was fun. It was UFO Fest. It was in Withville, Virginia.
Yes.
Which we've been pronouncing wrong as Wytheville. So.
And you know what? We're not the only.
The only reason why we figured out we were doing it wrong is because the actual GPS in our car, a la Google.
Yeah.
Maps basically was pronouncing it correctly.
Yeah, which.
And I made fun of it. Look, it's saying it wrong. And then we looked it up. It's like, oh, no.
Because she never says it correctly, you know?
Yeah, first thing for everything. It's all about the angles.
But apparently we weren't the only ones saying it wrong, so our bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And if you're in Withville and you're all offended, I don't care. I don't.
Say that.
Hey, man, there's other stuff to worry about and what's going on in the world in general to be worried about pronunciations of things. Okay, so a couple weeks ago, and we decided to hold this particular. Anyway, I made a video, so let me get to the point. So we went to the Chapel of Rest, which is a place right around Hickory / Lenoir, North Carolina.
Yeah.
Because it had been suggested to us to go multiple times, and for whatever reason we didn't do it. And then one day we decided, you know what, let's go do it.
I was kind of piecing together all the different stories and recommendations because some people described it as a certain, like it had a different name when people were talking about it. It's even referenced in a couple of local books by like the Murder Chapel or the Haunted Chapel, you know? Yeah. It's so just trying to combine it all and go, oh, okay, this is the location.
Well, that, you know, when people would tell us, they would tell us two different names and locations as well. So we decided to creep on out there, and that's what this particular podcast is about. But we do like to do a little bit of we have some steps that we like to do with every podcast before we get into talking about the good stuff.
Okay.
Like normally we tell you what we're going to have for dinner because one person one time said, what are you guys going to have for dinner? And we just include it in the podcast. And this is a big surprise to Omi. What? It's going to be pizza.
I was typing pizza.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
Well, we are.
So we're
a match made in cholesterol heaven.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so that, and we typically like to do a paranormal term.
4TN term
or 4TN term of the day, and I don't think we have one, so we do have one.
Yes.
Okay, so Omi's going to read it to you because I obviously need I can't even see.
It's the allergies.
It's 100 degrees outside.
And the weather.
Yeah. And everybody complains, right? If you're an older person like myself, hot is very hot.
Yes, it is.
It's not like, oh, I'm hot. It's like it's very hot outside.
We've had a heat index today of 105 to 107 degrees until 7 p.m. So that means even when it hits 7 p.m., that means it's still going to be somewhere around 100 degrees.
And it makes for moist conditions that I do not particularly care for.
Anyways, today's 4TN term of the day is a pretty easy one, but can easily get misconstrued into other things. That 14th term of the day is divination. Now, the most basic explanation of divination is the practice of seeking knowledge of the future or the unknown by supernatural means, typically with the aid of tools such as cards, dice, spiritual items, or prayer, or an intermediary like another person.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, sounds good. I'm just thinking about some things that you can divine with, do divination. You can do scrying. You can use those, what do you call them? Just where you jump in and say divining rods.
Dowsing rods.
Or dowsing rods. All sorts of things that you can use to divinate with. We didn't use any of that stuff when we went to the Chapel of Rest, but that's okay because it wasn't necessarily required for what we're trying to do. Mm-hmm. You know, because we like to go out there and explore the paranormal and stuff. And for me, it's even more convenient when all you have to do is drive, pull up and park and walk in.
Yeah.
It was cool. Okay, so let me kind of give you an idea where I'm coming from. A lot of times when we do investigations or have been involved in investigations, it's an orchestrated thing. There's a lot of moving parts. All right. You have a lot of stuff to get ready, and it just becomes a thing, right? You have to get it all ready to go. You have to have permission. It's just this thing. You can't just like walk in off the street and just do something.
But then even if you get permission, some of the places we've gone to, like I can think of like Helen's Bridge and that place in Alabama we went to, we still kind of like circled around once because even though you can go there, it's like, well, where do I park? Do I park in a place where I'm going to
you kind of got to scope it out, you know. And, you know, it's even harder like when we were traveling and we would just kind of, you know, come popping in. It's like, we've never been to your state before. Let us investigate. Is this okay or not? Is it all right to ride around in a cemetery in a big white van in the middle of the night?
Yeah.
I mean, with super bright lights and stuff so you don't run stuff over. It's a little bit of an uncomfortable thing, or it can be.
Believe it or not, we're relatively polite people when we travel to investigate.
We don't I mean, you know, I'm not going to come to your town and trash it.
Yeah, or stir stuff up, you know, just being all...
And a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And that's a thing. I shouldn't say a lot of people do, but some people do. And van dwellers in general and the people that travel in vans now and do all this adventure stuff and, you know, RV traveling or whatever, a lot of them are new and a lot of them are ruining it for everybody to go on a quick tirade. You pull into a Walmart parking lot, right? And people got their slide outs kicked out, barbecue grill going, just dumping some weird liquid all over the place. And they wonder, they're absolutely shocked when somebody comes up and goes, hey, you take you and your barbecue grill and get the hell out of here.
Or just because a celebrity decides to take a shower in a Sprouts parking lot.
Yeah, talking about you, Jason Momoa. I mean, you think it's cool. You got your Mercedes out there, and you're like, hey, I'm taking a shower in the parking lot. You wrecked that ability for people to stay overnight in the parking lot by doing stuff like that.
Because non-celebrities are going to watch you and think it's
okay.
Permission to do that type of behavior.
Yeah, and do the same thing with the barbecue grills and dumping weird liquids and just leaving their trash everywhere and wrecking it. You know, these businesses and companies that let you stay overnight are doing a couple different things. They're doing it out of the kindness of their heart because it is a complete aggravation for them. Mm-hmm. You know, maybe in the hopes that you'll patronage a store or whatever. But they're also giving you the ability to take a nap or whatever it takes so you can continue on your way so that you don't have to spend a lot of money and with gas being the way it is and everything. So to go take showers in parking lots. And it may be for an ad, and it may be the entire thing was closed off and under, you know, closed conditions. And you may have had
staff to pick up the mess after.
Yeah, but you should have a disclaimer that says, don't be an a-hole in the parking lot. You know, because that's what
got our new sticker.
Yeah, don't be an a-hole. Because you're going to take a shower in a parking lot. That's generally frowned upon. That's like homelessness type behavior that a lot of places don't want. Because they do that. I mean, I hate to say it, you know, that even if you're traveling in a van and you're pulling up in a $100,000 van, mm-hmm. Well, that person is homeless. Got to get him out of here. And that's the attitude a lot of places have.
Okay.
And you further cement the idea that you're, you know, doing sketchy stuff by taking a shower in a parking lot. You know.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think there's a lot of misconceptions there.
Well, I mean, he can get away with it because he's Jason Momoa. And he's a you know, aqua dude, right? Big buff guy. Looks good. He's not some like slob like me out there, you know, like trying to take a shower in a parking lot. I'd be like, you get out of here immediately, kind of a thing. So now we have to put a link to him taking a shower somewhere in the parking lot.
No, we don't. I mean, remember when we went to the Echo Amphitheater, and the dude just crawled out of the back window of his van. He didn't even use the whole door.
Yeah.
Crawled out shirtless with like one hand on the window so you could get out, and the other hand just death grip on some melting trail mix. And it was
it was granola. This guy was he crawled out of his back window, with the dirty cut off jeans, free eating food out of his hand, walking around, right? Letting his dog run free, which was running up to everybody, just being the absolute worst idea of being a traveling person or a van person you could be, because he straight up thought it was cool to be that way. And the funny thing is that me, the RV guy in front of us, and the RV guy in front of him, who parked over on the side of the road off the way so people could turn around and taking, considering what other people may or may not have to do in that area to try to be considerate, we're like, what an asshole. And it became obvious as he was just kind of jumping the line, walking in there, that everybody gave him the same look. And all the stare that he was getting, and probably the crusty old man anger that was inside, like, how dare you, right? I think it worked on him because he had no desire to go all the way in. He turned around, went back in there, and turned his van around and left.
Or maybe it's the fact he tried to walk barefoot on a hot trail. I mean, geez.
Yeah. Anyway, we digress. Yeah. So to kind of get back to the point, and we do apologize for the tirade, but not really, because we do have a camper van, and it's part of what we do when we go around and we do these investigations and stuff. If it's not 1,000,000 degrees outside, we try to stay in our camper van, and our camper van is set up. It is the albino rhino, and it was named through a contest that we had on our podcast. It's set up to investigate stuff. We have cameras, and as I'm saying this, I just realized that I totally should have set the cameras up, but I didn't even think about it. Anyway, it has cameras.
Especially while you were on the inside of the building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of dumb.
Yeah.
Kind of dumb sometimes. Anyway, and we use it for investigations and stuff like that, and it helps us travel places and to see things and stuff. And I am not paying $100 for a hotel room to sleep for 4 hours.
Yeah.
Never again. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe I shouldn't say that. It depends. Or if I get covered by ectoplasm, I'm probably going to check into a hotel room somewhere. Or if it's between taking a shower in a parking lot and ruining it for everybody or getting a hotel room, I'm going to crack open the debit card and see what happens, right?
100 isn't bad. $239, though.
100 is still bad. For 4 hours, that's $25 an hour. There's
true.
A lot of things you can get done for $25 an hour. Oil change, massage.
Mm-hmm. Actually, no, massages are $60 an hour.
Oh.
Yes.
Inflation.
A manicure.
Didn't even register.
Okay.
A garbage manicure, right?
True.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, we pulled up there and we were able to park, and we were the only ones there.
Yeah.
And it was great. And it's located in a place called Lenore, North Carolina / Happy Valley, North Carolina. So that's what the words we were hearing when people tell us to go. It's like, go to Lenore, like Hickory / Lenore, or go to Happy Valley. I'm like, I don't know where either one of those places are as they relate to each other. So we just didn't really do it. And then one day we figured out from the fourth person to tell us to go, we should spend some time and check it out. And we did. And we went. And it is a cool place because it's a church. You can rent the church if you want and have your wedding there or a wake there. It's like $800 for 2 days. The place is open.
Yeah.
Nobody's there. There's no like staff you can talk to. It's open during the day, and they are putting a lot of faith in their security system that you're not going to do anything dumb.
Yeah.
And it's a cool little place. It's been rebuilt a couple times. It's got the old sort of 1920s, 1916, I think, sort of architectural style. It is a little chapel.
Yes.
Chapel of rest.
Okay.
Right? So you got the chapel of rest, and you can go in there, and it's small, holds about 88 people, I think, because I read the brochure. I actually put this in the video. And what we did was we actually made a video of this little excursion, our little documentation of our adventure there. And we put it up for our patrons. And if you go to patreon.com and look for CreepGeeks, you'll find us. And if you want to join, you can certainly do that. And we do appreciate their support because it is very helpful.
Yeah.
So we made a video. So that video is up. Now, the video for the patrons has been up for a while. They have early access to everything. And we have made the video go live. So if you go to our CreepGeeks YouTube channel, you can also watch the video as well. So anyway, got that out of the way. Now, we went in. Mm-hmm. Now, I went around the back, and you went straight to the cemetery.
Yeah. I just felt like I needed to.
Yes.
So one thing I noticed, though, was as soon as we got there and we got out, there's a lot of quartz in the parking lot and in front of the church and around the front area of the chapel. Now, I'm not just saying quartz like, oh yeah, North Carolina full of quartz. I'm talking, they had like specimen grade quartz crystals as the rocks in the front of their chapel.
Yeah, not the whole thing, but it was scattered.
It was it seemed to be scattered very deliberately throughout all the rock and gravel in front of the chapel, to the point where I took some pictures, and I'll post those for Patreon and Instagram later. But it just struck me as odd that such nice quality crystals are just laying as the rock in front of this chapel.
Yeah, if you don't know, Omi is a rock nerd, so she picks stuff up and shows me all the time and says, look how amazing it is.
Yeah. And you're like, okay.
I'm like, hey, that's beautiful. That's a rock.
Yeah.
Now, I have been known to be absolutely correct by identifying dinosaur poop and stuff like that. And there's numerous times where you told me, no, that's not what it is. And people are like, that was a big blob of corporalite or whatever that stuff's called, and you should have kept it. Yeah.
Anyways, so it kind of fascinated me that there was like all this protective quartz crystal surrounding the front of the church. So I immediately headed to the graveyard because I wanted to see if it continued into the graveyard. You walk into the graveyard, you have to open this very creaky gate, and it's a heavy gate too. Pepper almost hit her face on it, and that was bad. But as soon as you open that gate, it's all grassed in. There's no rock. There's no crystal. There's no nothing. It is straight headstones and grass and leaves. And I noticed it's a very well-kept graveyard. Until you get to the back left corner. And the
back right corner. If you walk in and you walk straight back and then you turn, it'll be back in the back right corner. But if you walk, so it depends, all right? So if it's in the corner. You've got four corners, and it's the one either on the left or on the right as you're looking at it.
Well, it's the only corner that has a grave in it.
Yeah, all by itself.
Yeah, all by itself. And it's something like Margaret married to David. But David's not next to her at all. In fact, this grave is deliberately in the corner of this graveyard. It's not surrounded by anybody else, no other headstones. It's kept away. And what's very strange is that me and Pepper went there, and first she kind of dragged me over to this one grave. And there was a grave, it looked like of a soldier or a veteran who died a couple decades back. And she checked out his grave for a little bit, sniffed his little flag that he had, and then she went straight to this grave of this person.
Well, it was Memorial Day.
Oh, yeah, that's true. So she was being patriotic and showing respect.
I would like to think so. It probably just smelled interesting to her, but
Yeah. And we have some pictures of her, because when she went to the back corner, she was just started panting. And I'm like, that's weird.
Yeah.
So
the cemetery was weird when you went in there and took a look. Did I even go in there? I don't remember.
No, you remember you said, I have absolutely no desire to go in there.
Yeah, I didn't. Well, the weird thing is okay, this is going to sound kind of strange, but sometimes you can smell snakes. Mm-hmm. And when I caught around the corner, because I went around the back, because the front door itself, I didn't go into the front door, and this is in the videos too. Went around the back and just tried to, so I can kind of peek into the church through the windows and stuff like that. Into the chapel, I should say. But I smelled like, to me, what smelled like
king snake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rat snake, one of those big scary snakes that don't really do anything but eat the other dangerous snakes. Yeah. And I was like, okay, that kind of stinks. So I had the EMF little reader going off and kind of doing my thing and just sort of checking it out and seeing what it's all about and kind of peeking into the church and all that, and went in through the back door. And, as soon as I got in there, everything was great. Not a big deal. Just kind of checking things out. It's very small. It's wooden.
Yeah.
Right. And it's, have little spots where I guess if you're, a bride or whatever, you can kind of get ready and all that. And you go into the church because it's not manned. It's an open thing you can walk into. So that made it kind of unique for us, is you can just walk in and start investigating, and nobody showed up the entire time we were there.
Yeah.
So some of the legends that surround this chapel, right?
Yeah.
The Chapel of Rest. Mm-hmm. And some of the things that made us want to go there was like the local lore, like you were talking about, and we heard from multiple different people kind of saying the same thing, but slightly different, right? The big draw is that there was a preacher who allegedly hung himself from the rafters after his wife's infidelity. Right?
Yeah.
And he hung himself from the rafters, and I guess, decided to slit his wrist, and there was a blood stain that was supposed to be underneath where he hung himself from the rafters.
Yeah.
That they've tried to sand, and it just keeps coming back. Another draw to this place is there's supposed to be a Bible on the pulpit that's going to tell you exactly the way and date you'll die.
I didn't see that.
It was not there. Spoiler alert, it wasn't there. Right. Another part of it is the chapel's front door, no matter how well shut, will come open. Now, that's why I didn't go in the front door.
Oh.
I went around the back. I wanted to check it out, and then I wanted to go to the front door and push on it from the inside because, sometimes pushing on it from the inside will open it up, but it won't open if you pull from the outside. So I wanted to check the door.
Okay.
Now, the silly thing is, and I just thought of this about half a second ago, when I went around, right, I got out of the van, I did a little quick video because you're like in pasture field. It's nice, right? Yeah. It's a nice little. The door was shut. When I went around to the front and got inside, the door was open. And I didn't push it because I went in through the back door. It was open. So I didn't even have a chance to really check it.
And I didn't use the front door.
And it was kind of, it wasn't like swung wide open, but it was open enough to where I would have noticed it was open. So, and I didn't film this because I was kind of goofing around trying to figure out, I'd shut it.
Yeah.
And then it got hot and I actually opened it up again.
And see, I was out trying to take pictures of that one gardenia, so I didn't touch the front door.
Yeah. Well, the thing about it is it was hot in there.
Yeah.
And it is all wood. And as soon as I got in there and started, hey, is anybody here, kind of thing, because I wanted to see if anybody was in the church. Because it'd be creepy just to be doing I'm a paranormal investigator, and some person just comes busting out of the corner somewhere, because it would, it would scare the crap out of you, right?
Yeah.
And I kept hearing pops and creaks and stuff like that.
And see, that was going to be my little skeptic question was, could the process of opening the back door cause like a pressure effect?
I mean, well, it wouldn't necessarily be a pressure effect. It would be the fact that it's so hot inside and opening up, it was cooler outside because it started to sprinkle and rain, would cause that temperature variance to make the wood shrink or contract, or whatever. And so that's what I was checking. But the EMF would go off. I would start to ask a question. And it would beep once or twice. Mm-hmm. And the entire time, I'm just writing it off.
Yeah.
It's me just walking around, maybe, tapping the machine or whatever, because it does have sensitivity. I did calibrate it before I got in there.
Yeah.
But it would go off, and then it would stop, and it would go off. And it didn't register that there was anything weird going on for me, so the whole place felt sort of neutral. Mm-hmm. And we did take a look and examine the blood stain. And after I looked at it, I'm like, this is not really a blood stain. To me, it looks like a burn. It's a burn stain. And back in those days, they had these small stoves. They were not really big cast iron stove, but they were these small like barrel stoves that they would use, and they were probably about 20 gallons maybe. Anyway, to me that's what it looked like.
Like an oil type burn?
Yeah, or coal or whatever, like a space heater type deal.
Okay.
And to me, from where it was sitting, where the close to the pew, if the pews are in original places, it would make sense to have that little heater up there because that would heat up towards the pulpit. And then, a lot of times with some of the chapels and stuff, you put your elderly up front.
Oh, yeah.
Or kids or whatever. So it just to keep people warm, right? So, okay. So the blood stain, I don't know. I mean, there may have been one in the past. It could be kind of debunked. And there were some people on the internet that were saying they didn't notice any, burn marks or any kind of like,
wear or stress on the rafters.
Right. But I'm looking at it like this. If that chapel was using the same original beams from like 1916, those things get hard. Wood gets really hard depending on type of wood over time. Mm-hmm. And you probably wouldn't notice anything like that. Plus, if they painted it at all, you wouldn't be able to see. And it had the nice stained glass windows, and it was a nice looking place. We could get married there, sure. It's nice, But the blood stain, I don't think it's a blood stain. It looked like a burn to me because it's indented, like it was burned. There's like an indelible sort of depression there.
Okay.
And I kept hearing the weird pops, like wood creaking and stuff like that. And the EMF kept going off, and I'm just kind of writing the whole thing off. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm a big fat guy cruising through an all-wood church. So anywhere I step, it's like I'm just crushing through the floor, right? And that's what I was thinking. And there was a time where I'm like, oh, let me go ahead and sit down.
Yeah.
And just kind of sit there and kind of get an idea of what's going on. And the creaking stuff still kept continuing the whole time. And I'm like, this is weird. But again, I couldn't tell if it was settling because now you've got a big fat guy in there / it's getting cooler outside.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing. And, you know, I'd ask questions and it would pop off.
And it does look like...
The EMF would pop off, you know.
If you look at the church, it does look like they've done some stabilization underneath the church part, like the actual churchy part.
Not the chapel part?
Yeah, so...
You mean foundation?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah.
The foundation towards where the pulpit would be. Because of the king snake smell, which I found very fascinating, I was like, okay, he's right. Because at first it was like, what is that smell? I'm like, oh... So I started looking and peeping under the church, just looking around, because there's lattice you can see through. And I'm like...
Yeah, and it's on like a brick foundation.
But you could clearly see where they've done some stabilization right below the pulpit area. So, and it's new, too. So...
Well, it is maintained, because, again, you can rent it for 2 days for $800, so they kind of got to keep it looking nice. Yeah, so overall, I mean, the whole time I was in there... Oh, and I did see like a 1-inch ant. It was very large.
And I saw like wasps.
Yeah, and I'm like, all right, that's all normal because it's a place that's pretty much just out there in the elements.
Yeah.
You know, and if the door never shuts, and the door not shutting could be because of the way it's settling, the foundation, the wood, it's an older building, it's all wood, you know, all that sort of thing. So I never really got any kind of real vibe that the place was weird. To me, it was kind of neutral.
Okay.
And so there was at one point where I was asking questions, and I thought you were in the building. Because I heard you say something, just like not a very loud, but just a mumble or something, right? And I thought I heard you back there where I came in through the side entrance, which is actually around the back of the church. And since we do this sort of thing where we go around and sort of document stuff, it's not uncommon for you to be talking in a video or for me to be talking in a video, that kind of thing, right? So I just thought you were talking to your camera.
Yeah.
And so I said a couple other things and never really got any response. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe she's doing something else. And then I thought, well, maybe I'm ruining her video by talking to her. Right? So I didn't say anything. And I just kind of sat down for a while and I'm just sitting there sort of waiting. And EMF went off once or twice. So I went back to the back. It was sitting on a table because I had it set away and was just kind of, seeing what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And then you came in and I'm like, did you hear me? And you were like, no, I just got in. I'm like, oh, that was kind of weird.
Huh.
So I just barely heard it. Well, later on, when I was doing the video editing, I heard it. And, of course, me trying to do like on TV where you like replay it like 5 or 6 times so you can actually hear it.
Yeah.
It sounds terrible, but I was able to capture it and replay it 4 times in the video so that you could hear it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to play it for you. And it's going to be hard to hear. And it does get kind of loud, so if you're wearing headphones, just be aware. But it's the best I could do because I didn't think anything was going on or anything was going to happen. And there is some camera noise of me trying to hold the camera and fiddle around with stuff all at the same time. So for that, I apologize. But I'm going to take a second, and we're going to play it, and if you see what you think. And maybe you can hear something out of it, maybe you can't, but this is what I heard, and it is turned up a little bit so that you could actually hear it because it was kind of weird sounding. All right, ready? Here we go. A lot of popping and creaking going on. Could be because of that. Could be something else. I don't know. Anybody want to make a noise? Anything to say? You make a noise for me? There you go.
Okay.
I thought it was you because I was asking if you want to make a noise, and I thought I heard you making noise.
No.
So I turned it up. And the thing at the end, I don't know what that was.
Oh, remember? Because like, you had me come listen to it.
Yeah.
And then I let it play longer, and I was like, well, did you hear the growl?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest. At first, I thought it was my stomach, but it wasn't. Because we do these things, and, I eat at weird times, and I'm like, was I hungry? I wasn't hungry.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't remember if we ate beforehand or ate after, but I mean, I wasn't hungry. I had plenty of liquid to drink. It wasn't like I was suffering in any way.
We had McDonald's, I think.
After.
And then we got snacks afterward. So.
Yeah. And, don't judge us. It's an adventure, right? We go to a place and we get a little snack, right? And then we get rewarded with like cheeseburgers or ice cream or something afterwards, because why not?
Yeah.
It's a fun time. But yeah, I heard the noise, and it's just like weird. And when I was playing it back, trying to put some stuff together, edit it, I can't make out what it says.
But see, for me though,
it sounds like an answer.
Yeah. And that last bit, the one you were like, I don't know, that's the part that I was like, I think that's a growl or a rumble.
Yeah.
And
the last one was definitely more guttural.
Yeah. And
sounding than.
I mean, I didn't feel much in the church, or the chapel, I should say. I felt it was old.
Now, leading to what you were saying, and you said right in the beginning.
Yeah.
Which I was going to slip in at the end to make it all make sense.
Yeah.
So when I was in there, it was completely neutral feeling to me. I didn't really feel anything. Just kind of like, and I kept writing it all off. So, a lot of what you hear with local lore and stuff like that is sort of pumped up or inflated to give you a weird sort of thing. And I've seen other videos where people really haven't experienced too much and all that stuff. What if the reason why you don't experience anything in that chapel is because it is warded and it's doing its freaking job with all these crystals placed at strategic points around the outside of the chapel? Mm-hmm. That's what warding does.
I think it's very interesting that such nice.
Now, hold on. Got to say this. There. I didn't notice any of the crystal stuff because I wasn't paying attention to it because I smelled a big snake. I'm not a snake guy. I'm not fast. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm going to make sure that if there is a snake about, I'm going to be aware of it, and I'm going to stay away from it. So I didn't pay much attention to looking at the ground necessarily. I went up and went inside the church. Had no desire to go in the cemetery. It wasn't until we got in the van and sort of talked to each other about it when you brought up the crystals. And, kind of went through, well, maybe people put them there for the wedding, to make it look pretty or whatever. And you're like, no, I don't think that's the case, because why would you do that? They're all over the place and concentrated in the corners and all that sort of thing. And it was like, well, maybe it's warded. Mm-hmm. And so if it is warded, because I don't know, maybe you're one of these people, or maybe you own the chapel and you're like, well, let me make sure that nobody, has a weird, I don't know. And then it kind of kicked into the idea of, what if there's a secret group of people? They go to secret places and ward and protect it so that the innocent don't become afflicted and have maybe hitchhikers.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because what I wanted to point out was, okay, sure, what if the chapel's warded? And then me, the one that went into the graveyard, noticed the graveyard is not necessarily warded except for one prominent Celtic cross as a grave marker.
Yeah.
That stands taller than all the other stuff. That's the only ward within the graveyard. Outside of the graveyard seems to be in neglect or going back to the wild.
Yeah.
So something's warding the church. There's one thing in the graveyard. The graveyard has a significantly different vibe.
Oh yeah. I didn't really want to go in there. I just didn't have much desire.
And I went to go try to find a geocache, and as soon as you step the 1 to 2 steps into the forest, everything feels different.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. I believe you. I don't know. It was a strange experience that we had there. It was strange in that it felt sort of, I don't know. It's weird. The cemetery felt off. The chapel felt kind of neutral.
But if you're, the concept, like, what if there's people out there who go and ward or protect or diminish the power in some of these strange places? If that were the case, is there a whole subgroup of the paranormal community that actively seeks out these places just to confirm whether or not there's energy, paranormal.
I don't know. I have seen some cheeseball groups that go out there and they do, because everybody's cheeseball, right? Unless you're on TV, right?
And even if you're on TV.
Yeah. And they go out there and they're like, and we're going to protect this place. And if that be the case, what if they're out there just wrecking it for people that want to go check it out for themselves?
Remember I met that woman at Curtis Creek and she wanted to raise vibrations at Curtis Creek because she didn't like the energy there?
Yeah.
I mean,
but hey, what gives her the right? Why are you?
Maybe because she felt, and as her words, she felt that the energy there wasn't kind or nice to women.
Well, I mean, sure.
But
she's got a lot of work to do in the Appalachians, man, because these mountains around here are just awful. Not a fan. So we, as we kind of sat in the van, figured out our next moves and all that sort of thing, and it did get really hot afterwards. So we shut the door as we wrapped everything up. We shut the door to the chapel. I went back out through the same way I came in, right? Because that's what you do.
Yeah.
Made sure it was shut because I didn't want to be one of these people that would probably get a phone call from going, you never shut the door, and on security, we don't have and I'm like, so I didn't want to be one of those people. And we left, and we started looking into some, thinking about some different things, and we came across some witchy type information in North Carolina because the whole thing was kind of witchy with the, it felt witchy with when you brought up the crystals and stuff like that, and we started kind of looking for witches in the first place, right? It's sort of how we got led to this place.
Yeah, because what was it? Last summer, we were at Brown Mountain Overlook, and we had this wonderful couple telling us stories about this place.
Yeah, and the Witch of Morganton and all that.
Yeah.
And which is Morganton, North Carolina. And we somehow or another, our mission changed and we wound up at the Chapel of Rest.
Yeah, because somehow I ended up the Witch of Lenore, which was also sometimes referred to as the Witch of Morganton, and Chapel of Rest. I'm looking at the notes right now.
Yeah.
That's what we forgot to do. So
you shouldn't tell people we forgot to do stuff. You should just keep that to yourself.
We can encourage our listeners to try it. If you try to flick a lighter, it will not light inside the church.
Yeah, well, I didn't have a lighter to flick, and so I didn't include that because the Bible wasn't there either.
Yeah.
The burn, or the bloodstain, was really a burn. So to me, it was sort of piling up to where I didn't really think anything was going on, and it was just sort of inflated by the local community or whatever.
But there was a name, Joanne Denton, and I don't remember finding that,
Nope. And there was also the idea that the grave that was in the far corner of the cemetery was the preacher's wife.
Yeah.
Now, none of this is substantiated, and there's not even really any record of anybody dying in that church ever.
Yeah.
There's wakes that get held there.
And the church burned down at one point.
Right, and they rebuilt it and all. So, who knows really what's going on. I will say that when I was going back and looking at the video, and had this been like any other place and didn't feel so neutral, I'd have been like, every time I ask a question, I get one or two beeps on the EVP, on the EMF.
Yeah.
And I was getting weird responses. I actually heard a disembodied voice because you were still in the freaking graveyard. I mean, I heard it. I thought it was you. No. I'd have been like, there you go. There's weird stuff going on, but it didn't come across that way.
I went to the church twice. Once to see if there was a bathroom, and then the other time I went in there and asked you, if you were getting anything. And that's it. Yeah,
and Pepper kind of got interested by a chair.
Yeah, a chair in the corner.
Weird. And I think it's like a deacon's chair.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, she's very fascinated with a chair.
Just stared at it for a while.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of the whole thing. If we were in any other place and it felt even remotely kind of weird, we'd be like, there's something going on here, that was odd. Didn't really get that feeling.
I got that.
Cemetery was a little
But see, I
off.
got that feeling like if I had, very specifically, if I were to jump over the stone wall surrounding it, I feel that something bad would have happened. Not if I properly entered and exited it, but if I had jumped over that stone wall.
So if you escaped the boundary and didn't use...
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it was weird.
That's how... And to the point where, I thought I saw something out in the woods. Don't worry, nothing I don't think cryptid-ish. But I thought I saw large movement. And I'm like, the first thing in my head, elk, bear, whatever.
Cow.
Maybe. But it was thicker
back
there. And I didn't That's the part that bothers me. I thought I saw something, but if I did, I think Pepper would have been dragging me to the church.
Yeah, Pepper's not a hero.
So,
which is good. I like dogs like that. They're like, let's go.
If I had jumped over the stone wall.
So what you're saying is, if you were disrespectful,
yeah,
it might have woken that reaction, maybe.
So I'm not suggesting anybody jump over the wall when they go visit, but
well, it's kind of a respect thing too,
yeah.
and it's old. With our luck, we try to jump over the wall and destroy half of it, and I would be morally inclined to call somebody and go, "Hey, look,
my clumsy
I inadvertently tried to leap the wall and broke it. So what's it going to cost me to get this fixed?"
It's a nice stone wall.
It kind of, I know. That's what I'm saying. It would cost a lot of money, right?
I don't think you would have broke it.
I don't. I've broken my own neck, so how dare you? And we wouldn't want to be like, the weirdos in the Vanderbilt scene and are out there taking showers in parking lots. Jason Momoa, but that's all right.
But I mean, there's all these connotations like witch of Lenore, witch of Morganton, stuff like that, and then the murder thing. And the possibility of this location itself might be warded. It keeps going back to like witchcraft.
Yeah. And so, speaking of witchcraft, did you know that North Carolina had a statewide anti-divination law?
Yes.
And so, they're looking at divination as like fortune-telling and soothsaying and psychics and stuff like
Crystal ball readings.
Right.
Yeah.
But it does sort of tie into the whole witchy thing, and you put this in here, so I think you should talk about it.
Because, okay. Well, so I went to this... I had heard about North Carolina having an anti-divination law a couple years ago.
It's not uncommon. A lot of places had it for a long time.
And in the beginning, I guess it was to prevent scamming, I guess is what they were really worried about. And then it's also the religious culture in whatever state you live in. Well, in this state, they were pretty strict about this. So there's ordinances on the books, and those ordinances are specific to, well, not specific, they broadly overreach the whole concept of divination. So anything like astrology, bird organs, I Ching, numerology, palm reading, runes, tarot cards, teacup reading, and other methods.
Yeah, like scrying.
Yeah, were basically outlawed in North Carolina. And it was a statewide law. In 1999, I believe, there was a movement in the witchcraft and metaphysical communities within North Carolina and the East Coast to try to get this law changed. Now, it's a statute, and that statute is 14-201.5. And it's like practice of phrenology, palmistry, fortune-telling, or clairvoyance prohibited. And... yeah, that law had been placed on the books in the 1950s, 1951 to be exact. So, this section shall not prohibit the amateur practice of these fortune-telling methods, but to use them to make money, it's outlawed in the counties named herein. And
Herein, yeah.
Yeah, it lists those counties and states it's a Class 2 misdemeanor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it kind of goes back to gypsy fortune tellers.
Yeah.
And all that sort of thing. And sort of all that was sort of put in place to protect the people who might want to try to derive some benefit by having a stranger tell them their future or whatever in exchange for money.
Yeah. Now, in the 1990s or 1999 and into the early 2000s, there were quite a few people who, for some reason, out of nowhere, started getting charged with this, including somebody who lived in McDowell County.
Yeah.
He was did tarot card readings and basically got in trouble for it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's kind of strange how that sort of circles back. And, sometimes this thing...
Me trying to find out if this law had been repealed or anything like that, that's where everything starts to get hazy. And the most I could find was early 2010s. The law didn't necessarily get repealed, but now it's down to a county level. The county can have individual statutes. And in our case, the county we live in still has statutes against it.
Yeah. So in other words, they can roust you out if they want.
Yeah.
Charge you and kind of get rid of you and stuff like that.
So
kind of a weird thing.
Yeah.
Now, it's funny because when we look at like the anti-divination laws and information and stuff, it's one of those directly ambiguous type things, right? Mm-hmm. It kind of made us sort of think back to like how witches and stuff, were treated. And I came across this article where it says Salem's last witch cleared after 329 years.
Jeez.
And this was on the Old Canadian website. Right? And it basically says more than 300 years after being convicted, Salem's last witch was officially cleared. And it said lawmakers in Massachusetts in the U.S. Formally exonerated Elizabeth Johnson Jr., who was convicted of witchcraft 329 years ago.
Jeez.
And they were sentenced to death at the height of the Salem witch trials in 1693. She was never executed like the other 29 women, but she was also never acquitted.
Gee.
So is she the one that was blowing the whistle? Or was she they just couldn't really, guilt by association type thing? It doesn't really,
but towards the end of the 17th century, no less than 150 people had been accused of witchcraft in that general area.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you just look at the witch trials in general all over Europe, it was a thing for sure. But
yeah.
She was 22 years old and she was sentenced to hang, but her punishment was thrown out by Governor William Phips due to serious miscarriages of justice. So maybe somebody didn't like the idea of, maybe beating on somebody until they admitted to something or thought it was wrong, which is what the Spanish Inquisition did.
Yeah,
they would torture you. You were damned if you do, damned if you don't. And,
didn't they, from what I remember with the Salem witch trials, primarily it was the beating of an African slave, Tituba, first. They unfortunately beat her horribly.
Yeah, well.
And then proceeded to, I think, beat the next few women, and then it just came to just name-calling. So just the suggestion of torturing or beating, all the women were giving names of people, and we all see how well that turned out. So,
yep, it becomes a witch hunt.
Yes.
Shocking, right? Where we different. So anyway, I thought it was kind of interesting to put that in there. 329 years later, you get exonerated for whatever that's going to, But, who knows? So there's this other article I came across, which I thought was really strange, right?
Yeah.
This Virginia man keeps getting a bunch of, cryptid messages mailed to his home.
Oh, yeah.
So I was like, that's kind of... I don't know why I found it to be as interesting as I did, but when you look at mysteries like that, what's that? Remember the tiles?
Toynbee tiles.
Yeah, and also there's that manuscript that nobody can seem to so it kind of falls in line with that. This guy just keeps getting these basically postcards, right? Mm-hmm. So he's been receiving a series of increasingly cryptid messages by a mysterious individual calling themselves Molly May. And he has no idea who's sending them to him or why. And the guy's name is Mason Cox, and we got this article off Coast to Coast. And it says he received the first piece of peculiar mail back in March in the form of a typewritten postcard featuring a very weird message that begins with the unsettling observation that basically says, "Word has been getting around that you are getting pretty good with drones."
Oh.
Yeah. And then it goes out to basically propose that Cox uses his UAVs to harass the writer's boss in order to help them get a raise.
What?
And here's why I kind of put this in here.
Yeah.
If this guy's flying around in drones are a super advanced technology.
Yeah.
Compared to postcards that are being mailed through the U.S. mail.
Yeah.
So just the whole idea of I'll show you, I'll send you a letter. That holds some kind of, so it's obviously got to be an older person.
Yeah.
I would think this basically trying to single this person out. So yeah, Molly May kept sending these things, right? And the guy's like, it's got my name, correct spelling, exact address, including the apartment number. It was truly meant for my unit, so it had to be me. I don't know why it was me. And he says he didn't have very long to ponder the puzzling message before he received another clue on his hands from the second card from Molly May that came a few days later. And the missive detailed some kind of dispute at a cherry blossom festival, including an individual named Terry. And it says a few weeks later, Molly wrote again with another odd message which lamented finding one of those trash bags, and ominously declared that I need you to do your magic. And it says if you have to get the widowed, I'd say go for it.
What in the world?
Yeah, so it's like drones to get somebody a raise. It's unhinged, right? In a way that's just like what? And it continues by saying the curious one-way correspondence continued with the fourth postcard containing a message referencing candy corn, as well as the worrisome note written in Marge will find out.
What? Or Marge
it's the candy
found
corn.
out?
Yeah, or Marge. Yeah, Marge found out. So it's the candy corn thing. It's right. It's like, huh? Oh, and just so you know, if you're a candy corn person or not a candy corn person, and you're trying to figure out why the sweetness of the candy corn is different than what you've probably experienced with other treats, it's because it's honey.
Oh.
Honey gives candy corn its unique sweet flavor.
Okay.
Which is delicious.
Well, what's creepy about this is, I guess, that one postcard or photograph thing, it had GPS coordinates that led to a park in Richmond, but there's nothing allegedly in the park to help shed light on the situation.
Yeah.
Now, that reminds me of like some of these like really these pay-to-play scavenger hunts where you decipher a bunch of clues and you keep getting letters or emails or a combination of. You eventually get a GPS coordinates and there's like a prize or a message at the end.
Yeah, nope, not in this case.
So this is terrifying because nothing's making sense.
Yeah, and everything that shows up is so
but what if like
diametrically opposed to the last thing that you got? It's like how do you bridge the gap? Like you go from drones, everything's coming via drones, candy corn, making a widow out of somebody. It's just weird, right? So, of course, Mason did what like anybody else would do and go to social media and say, hey, man, anybody got any ideas? Looking within the world of web sleuthing, his story has generated considerable interest, but no one has managed to crack the case yet.
Huh.
And so while one might think that Cox is uneasy about the nature of Molly's messages, he expressed more fascination than fear over them. Although obviously hopes that the series does not have some kind of dangerous conclusion.
Oh, so this other site because you got this from Coast to Coast.
Yeah.
The other site has like the actual letters and stuff.
Yeah, I wasn't going to put a link to them because I don't want to give any power to whatever this is. Because sometimes
but there's a clue here that I don't think people are realizing.
You need to step away.
Okay.
Step away, little chicken. Mm-hmm. That's why I didn't put that in there. You're like, let me dwell on this and give this thing more energy than it should have.
I think it deserves this energy.
I don't, because I think it's some weird whack job stuff that you probably don't need to be a part of. Imagine giving somebody a puzzle that they can never solve. It just drives them crazy. Step away, little chicken. It's a funny news story, but it ain't something that's worth devoting any effort to.
Oh, I am invested already.
And that's why I didn't put the link in there. So, much like when you come bring me uninteresting rocks to look at, this is one of those things that you should talk about it and move on.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to do. So anyway, you put a link in here about Florida Man. I didn't realize we were doing Florida Man again.
Well, we haven't had any fun tidbits
because it's
recently.
not. I mean, it's just sad. It's 2020. It's like between 2020 and 2022. All the weirdo stuff that we're seeing.
You skipped the fact that we've been talking about witchcraft and witchy stuff, and I do want to mention, since we were in Lenore doing this investigation at Chapel of Rest, we're going to be in Lenore this coming weekend, or June 18th, and we'll be at the Foothills Solstice Celebration.
Yeah, I thought we were going to talk about that last.
Well, you skipped it.
Because we were going to talk about that last.
Okay, well, fine. Real quick, the only reason I have this Florida Man link in here is because Jackson man charged with stealing street sweeper after muddy takedown. The only reason you need to look at this is because of the picture. So,
of the dude covered in mud?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yep, that's pretty interesting. He's dirty. Covered in mud.
He stole street sweeper.
Why would you see? That's, to me, that's just the silly part. You should steal something faster.
I know.
Than a street
there was
sweeper.
A chase involved.
It was a slow chase. I mean, the cops had time to drink coffee and smoke cigarettes while they were chasing this guy, I'm sure. Yeah.
Okay. So
anyway, yeah.
Back to Solstice.
So, well, go ahead and tell them again.
Well, see,
Well, okay, so the solstice thing is one of those, I don't know. It's a solstice festival, right, where witchy people get together. What is it here exactly? So if you're all scared about going, you shouldn't be. I mean, I'm trying to think, what was the name of that movie? I don't know. I'm not really a solstice guy. I'm
okay.
Not,
So I think this is like their 3rd or 4th annual solstice celebration.
But which solstice is it?
The summer solstice.
Oh, summer solstice.
Yes.
Okay. Well, yeah, I guess that makes sense.
So, and this happens on June 18th. The info or about for this year's theme is the Fool's Journey. So,
oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I remember.
As you progress throughout the year, there are different themes and aspects to the different times of year, regardless of your spiritual background or religious beliefs. Each season has some sort of archetype or something special about it. Now, this celebration has its own theme, which is the Fool's Journey, and reflects how we all go through strange journeys. Sometimes they seem foolish, sometimes they seem fruitless, sometimes they seem odd. So, but we all go through that change, and we all go through that journey. Now,
very nice.
Yeah. So we'll be there. Go to the Foothills Solstice Festival.com if you want to learn more information about it. I think this, like I was saying, is this like the 3rd year?
I think it's actually the 4th year.
Okay. Yeah.
So it should be fun.
So it's
I don't know how many drum circles or anything like that's going to be about, but I mean, it's kind of one of those things where you can go learn. This is more woo-woo.
We haven't done any woo-woo events.
I know, and you keep threatening to get us out there. So this is it.
Yep.
And so generally the people are pretty nice when it comes to like woo-woo events. So it should be fun.
Their about describes as the Foothills Solstice Celebration Festival has been created to provide local community gatherings of like-minded people for the Foothills area of the state of North Carolina and our surrounding friends. Our goal is to raise community spirit and raise funds for community services that are needed in our area. We are ecstatic to see the generated interest we have had so far. We cannot wait to celebrate another trip around the sun. And it says, good times, good vibes. So, looking forward to this.
Very nice.
They're going to have speakers and presenters as well, and a lot of different types of vendors and booths. I think we're one of the few podcasts there.
Yeah.
They do have some other paranormal teams there, so we'll see.
Yeah, it should be fun.
And if you guys have been like ogling on Instagram, some of the little things I've been making lately, like the skulls, this is going to be an event you'll be able to pick one up. Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I think that just about does it. I think that's about all we got to say about that, just in general. So, yeah, it should be fun. It's June 18th. You should come check it out. It's free. Isn't it?
I don't remember.
Yeah, it's free. I don't know. I thought it was free. It's a free event.
We should link to their Facebook so that we can find out.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we should.
So.
But there you go. Get some woo-woo stuff. We need to see if Bobby is going to be there.
Oh, yeah.
Send him a little thing.
Hey. Who was it that I saw? So I saw a friend at the UFO festival.
The Withville UFO Festival?
Yeah. I saw a friend, Tracy, and it's funny because I actually had invited Tracy and another friend to this festival this coming weekend. So it's just interesting to see Tracy at the UFO festival. So, but
nice.
Yeah, this is going to be a big thing because having these types of festivals in North Carolina, I think, is pretty important.
Yeah, especially considering there's laws on the books against witchcraft.
I know, right?
So, and there's possibility you can get a tarot reading while you're there.
This isn't.
I'm sure it's by donation only.
Yeah, this isn't necessarily a witchcraft celebration.
No.
I mean, this includes everybody. Anybody who's into anything metaphysical, anything unique, odd, come check this festival out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should be good.
Yeah.
All right, so anyway, there you go. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, let us know.
Find us on social media. and check out our Patreon. Everything we talk about in the show, we have links in the show notes. We even have updates to my Etsy shop if you're interested in that stuff. Contact at CreepGeeks.com or CreepGeeks.com and click the Contact Us form.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, very nice. Glad you're here. You should come back and listen to us again next week. Any questions, comments, concerns, let us know. It was good having you. So anyway, see you later. Take it easy. Watch the video. There is a link to the video of the investigation we did at Chapel of Rest to document our little paranormal adventure.
And I think I'll be putting some of the photos I got probably on Patreon first over the next couple of days, and then I'll get them to our Instagram followers.
Sweet.
Yeah. Oh, and thank you for all the new Instagram followers. Thanks, guys.
See ya.
Yeah. Bye.
She knows